Welcome to Superstitions and Traditions. I'm Kristen.
I'm Trish. I'm Clarissa.
And that's the truth, too. And we are...
I'm Ellie.
And she's Ellie. All right, Ellie. You might love this one. And if you have any questions about it, they're for your mom, not Kristen.
Aunt Trish does not have to answer any of those questions either.
All right, so today is Am I the Asshole? Historical Edition. And we are going to talk about Gisella Perl. And she wants to know if she is the asshole. Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Ready?
Am I the asshole for forcing abortions on women?
Well, so far it kind of sounds like it.
Oh, okay.
Just from the first part, I'm thinking.
Yeah, you might be.
Okay.
You might be.
Possibility. I need more info.
Okay. I was born and raised in a small Hungarian town. My father was a businessman, and my mother filled our home with love and encouraged my siblings and I in our educational endeavors. All of us but one would earn a doctorate degree. Our community was like us, Jewish. I trained as a gynecologist after promising my father I would always remain a good, true Jew. I studied medicine in Berlin. More than half the doctors in Berlin at this time were Jewish. But in 1933, when the National Socialist Society rose to power, we were forced to return to Hungary. I became a well-known doctor in Hungary. My husband, a surgeon, was also well-known. We had 2 children, a happy life. That is until the Germans invaded Hungary in March of 1994. Most of my family were sent to the Szeged ghetto. My daughter, thankfully, was hidden with a non-Jewish family. Within months, we were all sent to Auschwitz. Mengele personally sorted the arrivals. We were divided into 2 groups. I later found out one was for workers, the other for death. It was known I was a doctor. As doctors, we were told to bring our bags with us when loading on the train, but he took our bags. He said they were his now and we would not be needing it. I was tattooed 25404 on my right forearm, my head shaved, and I was put to work. I did my duties. When the women were beaten by the SS soldiers, I cleaned and dressed the wounds with paper. I was instructed to collect blood samples. I soon realized those with diseases were murdered. The other doctors and I began replacing the vials of blood of the ill with our own. When they came to clear the makeshift hospital, sending those there to the gas chambers, I began releasing those well enough back to the barrack. Mengele discovered my specialty, and I was told to examine the women and report any who were pregnant to him. He told me it was so they would receive special care. But as I was running an errand, I witnessed the women I sent being beaten and shoved into the crematorium alive. I vowed then there would never be another pregnant woman in Auschwitz. My training and my oath made me swear to prioritize the life of the mother over the life of the unborn child. If the mother's life was at risk, I needed to terminate the pregnancy. And every pregnant mother who entered Auschwitz life was at risk. Abortion is frowned on in Jewish law, but under the circumstances, the abortion was justifiable. It was a medical necessity to save the life of the mother. Though it was by genocide, the mother would still die. I first tried to hide the pregnancy, taping the mother's belly, but when it was impossible to hide, I performed the abortion. I did most of them at night in dark corners on dirty floors with only a candle held by my 17-year-old assistant to guide me. I had no tools. I had to break the membranes with my fingers, dilate the cervix with my hands, and pull out the fetus.
Oh my.
There were times I delivered healthy babies, but they couldn't live. If they were discovered, we would all die. Once, I kept the baby alive for a couple of days, unable to snuff out his life, but hunger drove the child to scream. I kissed him, stroked his hair, and soothed him as I strangled him. On top of this, I was also at Mengele's mercy. I was once forced to remove an 8-week-old fetus and keep it intact. He kept the fetus in a jar. I lived in fear of his wrath. He could at any time send me to the crematorium or gas chamber. I was still a prisoner of the camp as well. In March of 1945, I was moved to Bergen-Belsen. I was there for a few months before being liberated. I wandered Germany for nearly a month looking for my family. I learned my husband had been beaten to death just before liberation, and my sweet baby boy was sent to the crematorium. I was the first to report of the sexual and reproductive horrors committed on women in the camps. I traveled the world speaking of the abuses perpetrated and published a memoir. I met Eleanor Roosevelt, who encouraged me to begin my practice again. President Truman granted me permanent citizenship of the U.S. I became the only female physician on the labor floor of Mount Sinai Hospital. I never spoke to my colleagues of my time at Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, but my tattoo was always visible. I eventually started my own practice on Park Avenue, specializing in infertility. In 1978, I learned my daughter was still alive. The family who raised her was unaware of her Jewish heritage, and she was raised as a Protestant. I was reunited with her and met my grandson in Israel.
I would like to retract my first statement. No, she is not an asshole.
I agree.
Times at that, I think I can't imagine the situation, but just horribly, horribly sad to have to. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, that would have been a hard decision to make.
So because she was a gynecologist when she was sent.
Yeah, which they didn't know that at first. They just knew she was a doctor. And when he found out she was a gynecologist, then he had her doing that kind of work.
Basically his dirty work until she figured out what was going on.
Yes.
Because he was like an anthropologist doctor and was trying to do studies and experiments, correct? To try to find out, and used the concentration camps as a chance to exploit and destroy.
Yes. And he had the twins experiments.
Ooh, I forgot about the twins experiment.
And she delivered the first set of twins.
Did they do experiments on?
Don't scoot them around.
So I'm assuming that the twins did not survive.
I doubt it. I don't know for sure, but I doubt it.
I think the big thing that really has stuck with me through that is like she had to survive, and survival was the biggest thing.
And these women needed to survive.
Yeah.
So
like she hid their pregnancy as long as she could hide it, hoping for liberation. And when that didn't come, and she couldn't hide the pregnancy anymore, she did what she had to do to keep everybody alive.
Yeah.
Right.
And she wasn't the only doctor doing abortions either.
Right.
All of the doctors, I think there were 5 that arrived with her. Her husband was a surgeon, but they kept men and women separate. So she never got to reconnect with him to find out his experiences.
Right. Yeah. So she basically, the oath at that time was during pregnancy to take care of the mother. So
yes.
I mean, she was
prioritize the life of the mother.
So she was still in her way doing everything she could to keep the mother alive, knowing that if they found out she was pregnant, they would all be.
She didn't know what they were doing, and he had told her that they were going to get special care, special treatment or special care. And she had run an errand, had to pass the crematorium one day, and she saw the line of pregnant women that she had sent to him being beaten and shoved into the crematorium, still alive.
So do we know more about where? I know she got her daughter to safety, that somehow someone.
She actually didn't know what happened to her daughter. So I don't know how it all came about, but her daughter was, I guess, somehow a non-Jewish family ended up grabbing her daughter.
Oh, wow.
And raised her. Which I don't know if, if whoever ended up with her raised her, or if they took her to, But that happened often.
So they
Do not make
would be reunited, 30s.
Yeah, this was 30 some odd years later.
Wow.
So, but that happened often. If they could get the children to safety, they would get the children to safety and then raise them as non-Jewish kids.
Okay, but she was interrogated too upon returning to the U.S. or not returning to the U.S. But once she was allowed into the U.S., wasn't she interrogated for war crimes? And
she offered to testify, but I don't remember.
That could be it. Maybe she offered to testify,
and I don't think they ever called her. But she did write a letter to. What was it?
The INS?
Yeah, something like that.
About the human rights violations that occurred.
And offered to come speak to them and testify.
And Eleanor Roosevelt was instrumental in helping her heal and getting her practice back.
Yeah.
And then she went on to specialize in infertility. I think that part's just amazing.
Yeah, and worked on a lot of women who had been in Auschwitz.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So a lot of her patients in New York had been in Auschwitz with her, and she remembered them from there.
Wow.
I just look at that time and I just think, what?
I don't need to move. Thank you, though.
What goes on in someone's mind to think that is an acceptable way to treat people? I know times were, obviously different then, but I can't look at anyone and go, I have an idea.
Not, it was bad enough that they had the leaders, but the people who complied.
Right. What makes you?
So there were sick, twisted people. Hitler was a sick, twisted person. Mengele was a sick, twisted person. But they had hundreds of thousands of people following.
And the rise of Hitler to power. When you read and study how the path that he went to gain the power that he did and to create the things that he did, the terror and the horror, I would think that as a country and as a nation and as a race, we would learn from all of that and maybe find some way that history does not repeat itself. I only hope that that's the case, that we can
absolutely
look to all of that and do. So,
I know that Kitty is running wild, isn't he?
What are your thoughts, Miss Clarissa?
Honestly, I just think she's really honestly amazing because I couldn't imagine being in that situation and not wanting to do what you can. Like, she even wanted to help people no matter the situation she was in, and she was willing to do what she could regardless. Yeah.
And I mean, in her own personal turmoil that she's going through, she didn't know where her daughter is, her husband, her son, that loss, you're going through that, but you still...
And her family. The only ones who survived this out of her entire family was her daughter and a sister that she found later on.
And she didn't know that about her daughter and sister till
way after 30 years.
Wow.
Over 30 years after liberation. Before she found them.
I'm with you, Clarissa. That's enormous strength. I mean, just to be able to...
And even, because she did. If she delivered a baby, she didn't deliver many, but the ones she did deliver, she killed.
Because she had to.
They were going to be thrown into an incinerator alive, where she can, at least let them go somewhat peacefully. I would a lot rather be strangled or suffocated than thrown into a fire and burned to death.
Absolutely.
Did she treated, you said that, like, some of the women that were in Auschwitz when she got out, she treated them after that? I wonder, that just has to be such an amazing bond because... Yeah. We just keep hearing little sweet Ellie's voice over there, and I'm thinking, what if we didn't have little sweet baby Ellie? For you all, that has got... Crimes against humanity are just...
Right.
And the fact that she was able, after all of that, to come out and restore her life and regain her, go back to practice,
and
go back to helping,
no
and
interest whatsoever in practicing medicine ever again. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Let us know your thoughts. Ellie got attacked by a kitty. It happens. It happens sometimes. We'll try not to let that happen again. But thank you for watching.
Yes. Have a good weekend.